creating custom Pokemon for you! Welcome back, everyone, to the show where we select lucky commenters to spin a series of random wheels that give us factors for a Pokemon that we then create just for you. It's gonna be an awesome episode today, y'all. We're gonna make 3 amazing custom Pokemon as always, so if you end up liking today's video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And of course, if you want a custom Pokemon for yourself, don't forget to leave a comment because I'll be randomly selecting people from this video's comments for the next episode. But without further ado, let's get into the first Pokemon. And this one will be for Ghostly Vibes. I'm glad you were able to enjoy the series without getting your own Pokemon, but now you are. So alright, Ghostly, let's start by getting the power level of your Pokemon, and you're going to be a Convergent Evolution for the first Pokemon of the day. That's cool. And it means that now we'll spin this wheel to see what generation of Pokemon will be making a Convergent for, and it's Gen 3. In the last episode, we actually made a Paradox form of Jirachi, so it looks like we're going back to back on Gen 3. And of course, now we'll spin this wheel that has every single Gen 3 Pokemon on it, and we got Cradilly. A Convergent Evolution of a fossil Pokemon has never been done before, and Cradilly definitely has a bit of a strange design, so this is gonna be difficult. And now let's see what new typing we'll be giving to this Convergent Cradilly. Your first type is going to be the Ground type. That is not too far off of the Rock types. That's good. And Ground Fighting type. A Fighting type Cradilly is definitely strange. And the last step before we see which Pokemon looks like, let's see if it has an X Factor, and none this time. Get ready to develop an irrational fear of pottery. The first stage of your Pokemon is Bleep, the Sandbox Pokemon. These Pokemon can commonly be found living in small desert villages where they hide in plain sight by curling up their hardened sandstone bodies and pretending to be pottery. But this is not due to the Pokemon being shy. In fact, it's quite the opposite, as Bleep are known to place valuables on the ground near their pottery disguises and wait for unsuspecting victims to walk near, at which point it will burst alive and unleash a quick uppercut, knocking out its prey before stealing any food that they may have had on their person. That's right, this Pokemon's primary way of feeding itself is mugging people. At level 40, it would evolve into Cradilly. This Pokemon is one of the fastest punchers in the Pokemon world, as it's able to rapidly whip its many fist-like appendages back and forth so quickly that it creates a near constant stream of jabs that no opponent can hope to withstand all of. And for this reason, they're often used by the wealthiest of desert merchants for security. That's right, this Pokemon has left its life of crime behind, as it now protects the same valuables that it would once steal, proving that anyone can change, even boxing sandstone criminally inclined pottery monsters based on previously fossilized Crinoid. In terms of stats, Cradilly has very similar stats to the original Cradilly, however I swapped the defenses and offenses, as well as lowering the HP and increasing the speed. And for the shiny, I went with this green color as a reference to the original Cradilly. But now let's get into the second Pokemon. But before we get into that, today's episode is sponsored by War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever created and is available for free on PC, console, and mobile devices. War Thunder has over 2,500 different tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships from 10 major nations, ranging all the way from early 1900s era biplanes all the way to the super advanced fighter jets of the modern age. It's also got super realistic graphics and sound effects and a ton of cool features, with my favorite being the X-ray damage system. Because when your vehicle or an enemy vehicle gets destroyed, it will show you in an X-ray vision exactly what happened. Like, you get to see exactly where the shell penetrated and even what components it specifically affected. And it's that level of detail that makes this the perfect game for any fan of military history. So if you want to join War Thunder's player base of over 95 million people and get started on some epic PvP battling, then right now is the perfect time to do so. Because for a limited time, new players or players who are returning from not playing for 6 months or longer on PC and console can get access to this massive free bonus pack, which includes all the rewards that you see on screen. And you can access this bonus pack by using the links in my description or pinned comment. Huge thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring today's episode, but now let's get right back into it. And today's second Pokemon will be for Cold and Final, who said that my channel is comfort food in video form, which is a very nice thing to say. So alright, Cold, let's start by getting the power level of your Pokemon, and you're going to be be a Paradox Pokemon. Nice. And it means that we once again have to spin this wheel to see what generation of Pokemon will be making a Paradox form for, and it is the Custom region. This is an absolute first for this series, and it means that we'll be making a Paradox form of a Pokemon that we've already made earlier in the series. And so now we'll spin this brand new wheel to see what episode this Pokemon will hail from, and it's episode 12. That's pretty retro. So we'll spin this wheel that has all 4 Pokemon that were in that episode, and we got Orchid. Not only is that Pokemon pretty slept on in my opinion, it's also a legendary, so this got even more hype. Now every Paradox form keeps at least one of its old typings, so we know that Orchid will stay fighting type, but let's still get a secondary type, and it's the Steel type. Fighting Steel type is definitely cool typing. And the last and most important step before we see which Pokemon looks like, let's see if it's a past or future Paradox form, and it is a future Paradox Orchid. Cool. Are you not entertained? Your Pokemon is Iron Champion, the Gladiator Pokemon. The original Orchid was a destructive force used by an ancient aquatic civilization to conquer the world. However, after the civilization achieved its goals, it entered a new age of peace where Orchid was no longer needed. And so they chose to seal Orchid away in an ancient chamber where it sat for thousands of years. Until one day when a tectonic shift freed it from its watery prison. And now filled with centuries of rage, Orchid rampaged throughout the world, destroying everything in its path, only ever being taken down when a group of the world's strongest trainers banded together, and even then they were just barely enough to defeat this mighty Orca warrior. And while Orchid's rampage was seen as one of the scariest moments in modern history, a billion years into the future, it's seen as exciting. That's right, in the bleak and dystopian future, nearly everything is different except for one. People love Pokemon battle, with one of the most popular forms of entertainment being the Cyber Coliseum, when trainers test their robotic Pokemon creations against one another in a battle to the end. However, in the Cyber Coliseum, no warrior is stronger than the Iron Champion, as it's modeled exactly after the Oceanic Beast, which nearly destroyed the world, while also being equipped with the most advanced of futuristic weaponry, including a deployable arm shield which can nullify nearly all energy-based attacks, and a giant blade made out of pure plasma, allowing it to cut through even the sturdiest of opponents' metal bodies, making it a truly undefeatable champion who billions around the world tune in to see. In terms of stats, Iron Champion is an incredibly strong mixed attacker because it has good physical attack as well as special attack, and the rest of its stats like its defenses and speed aren't even bad. And for the shiny, I went with this orange color as a callback to the original Orchid. But now let's get into the third Pokemon. But before we get into the final Pokemon, it's time for the member modifier. This is the segment of the show where we take a fan favorite Pokemon from a previous episode in the series and give it a brand new upgrade. You already know the drill. In the last episode, we gave Setamite a brand new evolution, and in today's segment, we're gonna do the exact same thing again. If you don't know, Setamite is a rock-type Pokemon with a split evolution based off the elemental evolution stones as well as RPG classes. And so far, it has 5 different evolutions, with the original 3 being Setamage, which is based off the Fire Stone, Setamonk, which is based off the Water Stone, and Sedruid, which is based off the Leaf Stone. But in the last 2 member modifiers, we also added Setarogue, which is based off the Moonstone, and Setafasur, which is based off the Thunderstone. But y'all seem to love Setamite so much that we're gonna keep doing member modifiers for new evolutions for it until we've covered all the stones. And for today's episode, I once again had my channel members vote between 3 stones to base a new evolution on. And the options were the Sunstone, the Dawnstone, and the Duskstone. And the winner was the Duskstone, which when placed in the hole in Setamite's chest will cause it to evolve into Setamancer. These Pokemon use their spectral energy to float around, which has caused its body to slowly crumble away due to lack of use. And while this does make Setamancer very physically frail, that's actually not a big issue, as Setamancer doesn't fight using its own body, as it instead opts to infuse nearby rocks with ghostly powers, turning them into miniature minions that can do its bidding for them. Huge thank you to all my channel members. I hope you like Setamancer, and if you want to look into becoming a channel member yourself to help us vote on the next member modifier, which will be another Setamite evolution, then you can look into that by hitting the join button down below. But now let's get back into the third Pokemon, and this one will be for Derek Allen. Thanks for making the journey over from Instagram. So alright Derek, let's start by getting the power level of your Pokemon, and you're going to be a fossil Pokemon. Wow, we didn't have a single regular Pokemon this episode. Cool. And now let's see how many times your fossil fossil Pokemon can evolve, and you got 1, which makes you the maximum 2-stage evolution line. Now let's see what typing your Pokemon's going to be, besides of course the rock type, and it's the electric type for a fossil Pokemon. That's actually really interesting. And the last step before you see what your Pokemon looks like, let's see if it has an X Factor, and you do, a Gigantamax form. That is actually the first of the entire series. And I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of Gigantamax forms, but it is still cool that we're getting the first one. Maybe lightning does strike twice. The first stage of your Pokemon is Ryrunt, the peak baby Pokemon. These Pokemon are very weak and shy, which in the prehistoric Pokemon world would normally make them quite vulnerable. However, Ryrunts have adapted to live in the highest and most treacherous parts of mountain ranges where they're actually quite safe, as most prehistoric hunters aren't mobile enough to make the journey to their habitat. However, this doesn't mean that they're completely safe, as despite their electric typing, Ryrunts are often preyed upon by flying types, who have no trouble soaring to the top of their mountainous homes and swooping down from above, with Ryrunt's only chance of survival being to retreat higher and higher into the mountains and hope that the unstable weather causes a bolt of lightning to strike their attacker, or at least get close enough to scare them away. At level 30, it would evolve into Sarashox. These Pokemon have left the weakness of their pre-evolution behind, as they're now much larger and very physically strong. But curiously, they still choose to live at the highest part of mountain ranges, where they can often be found sitting completely still and upright at the tallest points they can find. And while at first glance this looks totally dangerous, Sarashox actually want to get struck by lightning. That's right, this Pokemon possesses the strange ability to store huge amounts of electrical charge in their lightning bolt-shaped horn. However, they lack the ability to produce any charge themselves, leading to Sarashox spending days, weeks, and sometimes years at a time waiting patiently for a bolt to land on their head, as when one does, it will fill them with enough charge to power their electrical attacks for the next decade. But when taken to a power spot and exposed to a wishing star, it'll transform into Gigantamax Sarashox, now standing as tall as the mountains it once called home. These Pokemon now no longer need to wait for lightning to strike them, as their extreme height attracts a near constant stream of bolts to rain down on their head, giving them constant fuel for attacks that would even make Zeus jealous. In terms of stats, Sarashox is pretty balanced across the board, with above average HP but below average speed. And for the shiny, I went with this metallic blue color. Once again, thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring today's episode, and don't forget to use the link in my description and pinned comment to download War Thunder on PC, console, or mobile. Because again, if you're a new player or haven't played in 6 months on PC or console, you get to collect that awesome bonus reward. But that's gonna do it for today's episode, y'all. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe before you go. And if you want to watch more episodes of the Custom Pokemon series, there's a bunch in this playlist. I'm gonna get right back to making some awesome custom Pokemon for you, so I'll see you in the next episode, but until then, peace.